This brings us to a very important point. And that is, there's more than enough. How many of you have studied economics? Right? So good raise of hands. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ is narrated from Abu Dharr that he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam فيما يرويه عن ربه عز وجل, and that which he narrates from his Lord Azza wa Jal. If the man and the jinn of you, the first and the last of you, were all together in one plane, and were all to ask me at the same time, and I were to give all of you what you ask for, that would do nothing more to diminish my dominion than one of you sticking a needle into the ocean and pulling it out. So notice here that the Prophet ﷺ is telling us in this Hadith Qudsi that the idea of scarcity is an idea that we should not embody in every facet of our lives. There's more than enough. There's more than enough wealth to go around. There's more than enough food to go around. There's more than enough homes to go around. There's more than enough healthcare to go around. But the question is, how are we managing those resources? Greed only makes sense in the context of scarcity. If we separate ourselves, if we have this Cartesian self, right? This I think therefore I am self, that compartmentalizes itself away from the universe, looks at itself as separate from the universe, it becomes a very selfish self. It becomes one that's only concerned with what will benefit us, with what will benefit it, and what will harm it. And it has no concern for what will benefit others and what will harm others. So this idea, and although the study of economics is something which is very beneficial and has done a lot to advance the social sciences, taking the ideas of scarcity and projecting them into every facet of our lives and thinking that our lives are based upon scarcity and how we manage those resources, many times has the reverse effect that we wanted. We wanted to understand how to manage resources. We started to commodify. It was the commoditization of all of our resources. So everything has a price tag. Even you have a price tag now. How much is this person worth? Put the price tag. Scan, Walmart price check. Each of you has, a barcode, Q code. This becomes a problem. When we look at the world around us, we actually see that there's a lot more resources than we can have anything to do with. For example, we said earlier, it's easy to conclude that being greedy allows you to become wealthy. However, it's easier to conclude that wealth makes people greedy. As we said, studies have shown that wealthy people actually give less than people who are poor, because they empathize less with those around them. Because they're seeking so much, they're not content. They don't have a purpose behind what they're seeking. They're only seeking to gain more. Look at some of the richest people in the world who've given away all of their wealth. Look at, for example, the Bill and Linda Gates Foundation. The amazing things, or Melinda, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The things that they've done to help eradicate diseases which should not exist in the modern world shows that you have to have a higher purpose even with all of that money. Now, let's extend out this idea of not having enough to the rest of society. We said that it's easier, it's cheaper, it's about $22,000, $21,000 cheaper per person in society to give people homes instead of having the homeless. Why? Why would it be more expensive to have homeless people? theft, crime. Let's get away from that. Why would it be more expensive? Health issues. What are the main issues? Health issues. Where do homeless people go for health care? Go to the emergency room. They go to free clinics. Why do they go there? How do their health issues develop? They have to provide service immediately. Why do they have those health issues? I'm sorry? Sanitation. A lot of times it's because they're not in a home. They're not protected from the elements. And so they become sick. Sharing in our healthcare is cheaper. I know a lot of people don't like to say that, right? I believe healthcare is a human right. Right? I don't necessarily like healthcare.gov as a website, but I believe that everyone should have healthcare. Right? Healthcare is a human right. I don't believe that the Prophet ﷺ would ever find people sick and dying in the streets and allow them to go into millions, if not thousands, thousands, if not millions of dollars of debt as a society, right? Just because they needed to be treated. Because what happens when you don't have health care? You either don't go to the doctor or you use an emergency room. If you use an emergency room, you have a huge debt. If you don't use an emergency room, your health problems exacerbate. And then you have to go into critical care later in life. The food industry. They say there's about 30% waste of the food that we have just because of having to ship it long distances. If we all ate locally and grew our food locally. Remember earlier we talked about, what do I need to survive in a month? Well, I need this amount of money, I need this amount of money. Well, what if instead of buying groceries every day, you were growing your groceries in the backyard? How much money would that save you? How much gas would that save you? How much impact would that remove, negative impact would that remove from the environment around you? How much would you be able to share with your neighbors? Or even take it to the farmer's market and sell because there's so much of it? Subsidies for milk, subsidies for grain. All of these foods are subsidized. Some of them are distributed to the poor. Some of it is thrown down the drain. Some of it's shipped overseas while we have poor people here at home, starving people in the streets. So there's more than enough, but it's how we manage those resources. The meat industry. Everybody says, alhamdulillah, we have unequaled access to meat in our time. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the only times people would eat meat during the year was Eid al-Adhiyah, Qurbani, right? Because you would slaughter and then you would pass out. We have unequaled access to meat. But does that meat is that meat healthy for us? Right? There are some documentaries, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the documentary. There's a documentary that just came out about pig and chicken farmers in the Appalachians. And how, yes, they're producing all of this meat, and there's an abundance. There's also an abundance of waste that's produced with it, because the farming methods are unnatural. And what do they do with that waste? They spray it on the neighborhoods around them. And so people have developed cancers and sicknesses because they have toxic waste being spread into their water supplies and on their homes. The elderly woman said, yeah, it sounds like it's raining. That's when I know that they're spraying down my house, or spraying. The sprayers from the pig farms are spraying out their waste because they collect them in these huge vats. So the economic impact of seeking abundance unnaturally has made the meat less healthy and made the production less healthy. So in actuality, we've gained nothing from that abundance. Instead of it becoming a resource for us, it's become a detriment. Think about the things that you buy. We plan for obsolescence. We plan for our things that we buy to be obsolete. How many of you have replaced furniture in the last 3 years? How many of you have replaced furniture, or you replaced something in your home? How many of you have pressed particle board furniture in your home? How many of you even know what that is? Okay? Generally what you buy from IKEA, right, is pressed particle board. It's all of the waste that comes from making paper and the lumber industry, and then it's, they pressurize it, they put glue in it, and they pack it, and they make it into boards, and then it breaks, and then you find it on your curb, and then it goes to a landfill, and then it breaks, and then it breaks down and becomes a problem. You remember when you go to your grandmother's house and you hit your knee on her end table, and you go, what is that made of? It's like kryptonite end tables at your grandmother's, because it was real wood and it was made to last. But nowadays, everything that we own is not made to last. How many times do we change our phones throughout the year? Right? We won't answer that question. I won't, But, we plan for obsolescence. We plan for our things to go bad. Why? Because it's the consumer attitude. But if we knew that there was more than enough, and we managed those resources properly, then we wouldn't have the problems that we have. So scarcity is an illusion. It's a cultural creation that comes from putting a price tag on everything. And that's why it's important to realize the last of this hadith. If all of you were to ask me at the same time, everyone in creation, that would do nothing to take away from what I have and what I can give you. So it's not about there not being enough. It's about what we do with what we have. It's like the question that always comes up in natural disasters. What do people say in natural disasters? Ha ha ha, where is your God now? Natural disasters, you people of faith, you foolish Jews, Muslims, and Christians. The one time they like to ball us all together, right? That's not the question to ask. The question is, what are we doing if we believe that that's something that's an actionable item for us to change? What are we doing as human beings, as people of faith or as people of no faith? What are we doing with the resources that Allah has given us to make a change in those people's lives? Because as believers, we believe that there's something greater beyond us. We believe that we're going to be held accountable. And so everything that we have to use for the betterment of ourselves and the betterment of others. Notice the arbitrary lines that are drawn up for countries and how people have to live as refugees in the cold, without food and without shelter, because they can't cross an imaginary line because the empty space in my country is just too preoccupied with nothing. The ideas of immigration. And every single one of us here is an immigrant. Every single one of us. So the idea of there never being enough, it's really not about that. It's really about what we do with what we have. It's about going back to our purpose. It's about what is the real wealth. It's about tithe and trust, the management of our resources.